All right, so get ready for our deep dive today.
Yeah.
It's going to be a biology crash course.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about biological classification,
Okay.
which is basically how scientists organize um, all the millions of species on Earth.
Right. Yeah.
It's like creating this giant library where every single book is a different species.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about grouping organisms based on their similarities and their differences.
Okay.
And that really helps us understand how they're all related
Ah.
and how life on Earth has evolved over time.
So it's like more than just memorizing all these names, like in biology class.
Right.
It's really about uncovering the story of life, like how it's all connected, right?
Absolutely. And to tell that story, scientists use what we call the taxonomic hierarchy,
Okay.
which is basically a kind of ranking system that gets increasingly specific as you go down the levels,
Okay.
just like, the Dewey Decimal System in a library.
Oh, okay. I get it.
Yeah.
So can you break down like what these different levels are?
Sure. So we start really broad with what we call domains.
Okay.
The biggest categories like bacteria, archaea,
Uh-huh.
and eukarya.
Okay.
Then we zoom in a little more to kingdoms.
All right.
You've probably heard of the plant and animal kingdoms.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And from there, it gets even more specific. We go to phylum, class, order, family, genus, and finally, species.
Whoa, that's a lot of levels.
It is.
So I'm thinking about those Russian nesting dolls
Oh, yeah.
where each one fits inside the larger one.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because just like those dolls have unique designs,
Uh-huh.
each species has a unique two-part scientific name.
Gotcha.
It's called binomial nomenclature, and it really helps avoid a lot of confusion.
Right, because like a rose
Exactly.
could be called so many different things.
Yeah, common names can vary so much.
Yeah.
Like, depending on where you are in the world, one type of flower could have tons of different nicknames,
Exactly.
but scientific names are universal. They use Latin terms to make sure that scientists around the world can communicate clearly.
Gotcha.
For example, like, our own species is Homo sapien.
Homo sapiens. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got these different levels of classification and then these unique names.
Right.
It's like we're organizing a massive collection of trading cards or something.
Yeah.
But how do scientists actually figure out how they're all related?
Well, that's where phylogeny comes in.
Okay.
Think of it kind of like a family tree for all the different species,
Okay.
showing how they've branched off from common ancestors over millions of years.
So like how my family tree shows me and my cousins are related
Exactly.
to our grandparents.
Exactly. And just as you can see family resemblances in a family tree,
Right.
you can see evolutionary relationships in what we call a phylogenetic tree.
Okay.
For example, the Hominidae family, which includes humans and great apes,
Mm-hmm.
all descended from a common ancestor.
So if you look at all the branches on that tree, you can see how closely related different species are.
You got it.
Wow. Okay.
And to construct these trees, scientists use a variety of evidence.
Okay.
It's not just about physical features anymore.
Uh-huh.
They analyze DNA, protein sequences,
Wow.
even behavior. It's like being a detective, kind of
Yes.
piecing together all these clues to uncover the evolutionary history of life.
What's incredible, we can like trace those connections back millions of years.
We can.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that it's not just about physical features anymore.
Right.
So what other kinds of evidence do scientists use to actually classify all these organisms?
Well, they look at things like molecular data DNA and protein sequences.
Okay.
The more similar the molecules are, the more closely related the organisms probably are.
Right.
They also look at embryological development,
Okay.
anatomical structures, and even behavioral patterns.
Oh, it's like this multifaceted investigation
Exactly.
looking for similarities
Yeah.
across all these different levels of biology.
Yeah.
And I imagine that sometimes new evidence can lead to some surprising findings.
Yeah, you're right. Sometimes new evidence challenges our previous classifications.
Right.
Like, remember those skunks we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
They were once grouped with weasels and badgers,
Mm-hmm.
but molecular evidence revealed that their DNA was significantly different.
Oh, wow.
So they got reclassified into their
Oh.
own separate family.
Wow. So that's like a major plot twist.
Yeah. It's like finding out you're not related to the family you thought you were.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of plot twists, like, didn't scientists used to use a 5-kingdom system for classifying life?
Right.
Like, what happened to that?
That's a great point. For a long time, scientists used 5 kingdoms to categorize all living things. Plants, animals, fungi, protists, and bacteria.
Okay.
But as our understanding of the microscopic world grew,
Right.
particularly with advances in molecular biology, a major shift happened.
I'm sensing another plot twist here.
Yeah.
So what changed?
Scientists discovered that those single-celled organisms that we had just lumped together as bacteria
Right.
were actually two very distinct groups, bacteria and archaea.
Okay.
And what's really mind-blowing is that archaea, despite being single-celled and lacking a nucleus,
Yeah.
are actually more closely related to us,
Whoa.
the eukarya, than they are to bacteria.
Oh, okay.
It totally changed our understanding of the tree of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we moved from 5 kingdoms to 3 domains.
Right.
Bacteria, archaea, and eukarya.
Exactly.
Reflecting this deeper understanding of how everything's related.
Yeah.
It's amazing how scientific discoveries can completely change our perspective on things.
It really shows the power of scientific inquiry
Yeah.
and how our knowledge is constantly evolving.
But with millions of species out there,
Right.
how do scientists even begin to identify all of them?
Well, they have a tool for that.
Okay.
It's a bit like a roadmap for identifying organisms called a dichotomous key.
A dichotomous key.
Yeah, imagine it kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure book for identifying species.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does that work?
It starts with a question that has 2 possible answers based on your observation.
Yeah.
So depending on your answer, you're directed to the next question,
Okay.
and so on until you arrive at the name of the organism.
So it's like a series of yes or no questions
Yes.
that guide you to the right answer.
Exactly.
Like almost like a game of 20 questions with nature.
That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
And with each question, you eliminate possibilities.
Okay.
You narrow down the options until you arrive at the answer.
Wow.
It's a process of deduction guided by careful observation.
So, let's say I'm walking through a forest and I see a plant I've never seen before.
Right.
How would I use a dichotomous key to figure out what it is?
Well, you would start by just observing the plant really carefully.
Okay.
And the key might ask you about the shape of its leaves. Are they simple or compound? Then it might ask about the arrangement of the leaves on the stem. Are they opposite or alternate?
Gotcha.
And so on, each question leading you a little closer to the plant's identity.
So, okay, it really is like a game of guess who with nature.
It is.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It makes identifying plants seem a lot less daunting.
It does.
It's like having a botanical detective kit right in your pocket.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, with all these different approaches and all this evidence,
Right.
is there ever any debate or disagreement among scientists about how to classify things?
Oh, absolutely. Science is all about questioning, revising, and refining our understanding. Remember those skunks we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Their reclassification came about because scientists questioned the traditional classification
Right.
based on this new evidence.
Right, so it's not a static system.
No, it's not.
It's constantly evolving
It is, exactly.
as we learn more.
And that's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah.
There's always something new to discover, some new connection to uncover. Right.
Some new mystery to solve.
This whole conversation's really opened my eyes to, the complexity
Yeah.
and just the wonder of biological classification.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It's not just about memorizing all these names and categories.
Right.
It's about understanding how all life is interconnected, you know?
Yeah.
It's the story of evolution and just the incredible diversity that makes our planet so unique.
Well said. And remember, this is just the beginning.
Right.
There's a whole world of fascinating organisms out there waiting to be explored.
For sure.
From microscopic bacteria to giant sequoia trees.
Wow.
Every living thing has a story to tell,
Yeah.
a place in the grand scheme of life. And by understanding the principles of classification, we can begin to decipher those stories
Right.
and appreciate this intricate tapestry of life on Earth.
It's amazing.
It really is, yeah. It's
Yeah.
like exploring this vast, uncharted territory.
Yeah.
Who knows what amazing creatures and connections we might find, lurking in the depths of the tree of life. I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And speaking of exploring, those dichotomous keys we were talking about,
Right.
they sound like such a great tool for any budding biologist.
Yeah.
It's like having a field guide that asks you questions to help you identify what you're looking at.
Exactly. They're so useful for anyone who wants to understand the diversity of life around them,
Yeah.
You don't have to be a scientist to use them.
So, let's say I'm walking through a forest
Okay.
and I see a plant I've never seen before.
Right.
How would I use one of those keys to figure out what it is?
Well, you would start by just observing the plant really carefully.
Okay.
The key might ask you about, say, the shape of its leaves. Are they simple or compound?
Okay.
Then it might ask about the arrangement of the leaves on the stem. Are they opposite or alternate?
Right. Okay.
And so on, each question kind of leading you closer to the identity of the plant.
So it's like playing a game of guess who with nature.
That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
With each question, you're eliminating possibilities
Right.
and narrowing down your options until you arrive at the answer.
Wow, that's really cool.
It is.
It makes identifying plants seem a lot less daunting than it actually is.
Right.
It's like having a botanical detective kit in your pocket.
It is, yeah.
But with all these different approaches and all the evidence that we've talked about, I mean, is there ever like debate or disagreement among scientists about how to classify things?
Oh, absolutely. Science is all about questioning,
Right.
revising, and refining our understanding.
Right.
You know, remember those skunks we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Their reclassification came about because scientists questioned the traditional classification
Right.
based on new evidence.
So it's not like a static system or anything.
No, it's not.
It's constantly evolving as we learn more.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah.
There's always something new to discover, some new connection to uncover, some new mystery to solve.
This whole conversation has really opened my eyes to like the complexity and the wonder of biological classification.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
It's not just about memorizing names and categories.
Right.
It's about understanding how all life is interconnected, the story of evolution, and just the incredible diversity that makes our planet so unique.
Well said. And remember, this is just the beginning.
Right.
There's a whole world of fascinating organisms out there just waiting to be explored.
Yeah.
From microscopic bacteria to, giant sequoia trees.
Wow.
Every living thing has a story to tell,
Yeah.
a place in the grand scheme of life.
It's amazing.
And by understanding these principles of classification, we can begin to decipher those stories
Right.
and appreciate this intricate tapestry of life on Earth.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's like, it really makes you realize just how much we still don't know about life on Earth.
Absolutely. And that's what's so captivating about biology. It's like this
Yeah.
ongoing journey of exploration
Mm.
with new discoveries emerging all the time.
It's like we're always adding new chapters to this giant encyclopedia of life.
Exactly.
Well, I think it's time for us to start wrapping up our deep dive into biological classification.
Yeah.
But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay.
We've talked about how classification systems are constantly evolving,
Right.
driven by new evidence and technologies.
Mhm.
But what if we could take it a step further?
Okay.
Like, what if we could develop a system that not only reflects evolutionary relationships, but also, like, predicts the potential for future evolution?
Wow, that's an interesting thought.
Yeah, a system that could actually anticipate how life might adapt and diversify in response to all these changing environments.
That would be amazing.
Right, it's like taking the tree of life and not just looking at where the branches have been,
Right.
but also projecting forward and trying to see where they might go next.
That's a great way to put it.
It would be like this powerful tool for understanding the resilience and adaptability of life. And for guiding conservation efforts in our world, that's changing so rapidly.
It would.
And it really reinforces what we've been talking about this whole time.
Yeah.
That biological classification is about so much more than just assigning names and categories.
Right.
It's about understanding how interconnected all life really is, the story of evolution,
Yeah.
and just the sheer diversity of our planet.
Well said. And remember, this is just the beginning of your exploration.
Right.
There's a whole universe of knowledge out there just waiting to be discovered.
For sure.
So keep exploring, keep questioning,
Yeah.
and keep that sense of wonder alive.
Right.
Who knows, maybe you'll be the one to make the next big discovery in biology.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And on that note, we'll say goodbye for now. But remember, the journey of discovery never really ends.
It doesn't.
There's always something new to learn, something new to explore, something new to wonder about. So keep your curiosity alive and keep diving deep into this fascinating world of science.
Absolutely.
Until next time.